very passionate about that, primarily because there are a lot of things as a child, I didn't get a lot of good advice. And one of the things that I found as I've gotten older was that we have to advise our young people effectively in order to ensure that they're successful. And so I recently wrote a book called Success Essentials for Young People, Young Adults, Guide to Employment and Life Success. Right? What's going on, Vic? Right? So, this book, I wrote it from a perspective that to advise young people, and not only just young people, but parents as well, on the things that we should discuss with our kids to ensure that they're successful. Because as a young person, I didn't get a lot of good advice, and we kind of, in growing up in Harlem, we kind of played it by ear. And thankfully, we played a lot of basketball, and we pretty much stayed out of trouble. But and a lot of my friends growing up from in Harlem are very successful, and they've been very productive adults. But we were fortunate. There are a lot of kids out there that are not that fortunate to have a good group of kids around them, and so their parents have to really kind of explain to them how to be successful, right? And if your parents, don't tell you certain things that you need to know to be successful, then you will struggle in life. And we don't want to do that. We don't want our young people to struggle. So, some of the things that we want to discuss with them, and it's some of the things that I discuss in my book. So, feel free to go to craigapalmer.com and pick up this book. It's only $10 on the website. If you go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble, it'll cost you $12.99. So it only costs you $10 on the book. And I can assure you, it's definitely going to help your young person be successful because I break down employment step by step. And I also talk about some of the essential things necessary for our young people to be successful. So let's talk about some of those things that we should advise our children. Number one, and this is not really an you don't have to follow this order step by step, but these are some of the things that I suggest that we want to ensure that our young people know. Number one, we want to make certain that we teach our children chess, right? Our boys and our girls, we want to teach them chess. Why do we want to teach our young people chess? Well, statistics have shown that young people who learn chess actually score higher on math tests, right? Not only do they score higher on math tests, but one of the big things about chess is that it allows you to understand strategy, right? And strategy is very important when we talk about business success, life success. A lot of times we look at chess, you have to look at 3 and 4 moves in advance. And so we want our young people to be thinking about, you know, 3 or 4 moves in advance. We want them to think about what college am I going to go to? What profession am I going to pursue after college? We're going to talk about, credit and buying a home and all of those type of things that are necessary. We have to talk to our young people about. You have to understand that our counterparts are sitting at the dinner table talking to their young kids about these things. And so we can't be afraid to talk to our young people about certain things. And so we have to make certain that our young people know how to play chess. I mean, in fact, in some colleges, they have chess clubs. I mean, there are some folks that go to top-notch colleges primarily because they know, how to play chess. They know how to play rugby. You know what I mean? Like they know how to play certain things. So very, very important that we teach our young people chess. Very, very important, right? Now, if you want to call in, let me give the call-in number. If you have any questions, you want to make any comments, the call-in number is 516-453-9957. This is Employism Magazine. I'm your host, Craig A. Palmer, employment strategist and career coach. And tonight's topic, we're talking about 10 things we should talk to our young people about in order for them to be successful in life and in business. So the first thing topic number one, we've talked about, we should ensure that our young people learn chess. Very, very important. All right, because we want them to be able to think analytically. We want them to be able to think 2 and 3 steps ahead. So chess is very, very important. All right. Number 2, what do we need our young people to know? Number 2, we want to ensure that our young people play sports. We want our young people, both boys and girls, we want them to play sports. Why are sports so important? Well, besides the health aspect of playing sports, because we know sports, you're very healthy if you're running around and you're getting on your cardio and all that kind of stuff, and they stay in good shape. When I was a kid, I could just tell you it was rare that you saw young people out of shape. And nowadays, because of probably, video games and things of that nature, I see a lot of kids that are in poor shape. They don't do a lot of activities. So it's important that we kind of make certain that our young people play a lot of activities, right? We want them to be, playing sports, right? We want them to, and not only just because of the health aspect of sports, but we also want them to understand competition, because you're going to fail at certain things in life. That's just a given. We're not going to be completely successful with everything we do in life. And sports teaches you how to deal with failure. It teaches you how to get back up if you get knocked down. It teaches us what to do and how to deal with it, and not let failure destroy us. I recall Muhammad Ali, he has a quote that he says, it's not, whether you get knocked out, it's how well you get up, something to that effect. But you get the point, right? You're going to get knocked down quite a bit. And so we want to make certain that we get up every single time. And sports teaches you that. It teaches you competition. It teaches you how to deal with rejection and loss. It also teaches you how to deal with being successful as well. So very, very important that our young people play sports. I would highly recommend it. All right. Number 3. As an employment strategist and a career coach, one of the things that I talk to young people about when I do my talks and lectures at high schools and middle schools, and I do my success employment workshops. And this is one of the books that the young people get when they attend my workshops. One of the things that I talk about also is the importance of making certain that our young people know about computers. When I do workshops with adults, I'm kind of shocked sometimes that adults know nothing about computers. We now have to be able to navigate computers. Why? The reason why we have to be able to navigate computers is because you have to be able to upload, copy and paste your resume, right? You have to be able to, as a young person, now young people nowadays pretty much know how to text, right? They use that little savvy, but are they learning softwares that are going to help them in the long run when it comes to employment? Like, one of the things that I would encourage everyone, if you have a young person, have them learn coding. Coding is very, very important. And you're going to hear me talk about vocational skills in a moment, but coding is a vocational skill, right? If you look at, apps nowadays, apps are created by knowing coding. Websites are designed by knowing coding, right? So you want to learn coding because that's the wave of the future. What company nowadays doesn't have an app? What company nowadays doesn't have a website? What company out there nowadays doesn't have some sort of social media presence, right? Nowadays, if a company doesn't have a Facebook page, or they don't have Instagram, or Periscope or something to that effect, they're lost. I mean, nowadays they're learning how to integrate computers into your daily lives in terms of business. So very, very important that young people learn coding, right? And there are a lot of free coding classes, but besides the free coding classes, I would strongly suggest that the money that you spend sending a young person to camp is the same kind of money you could spend sending them to coding classes during the summer. And in fact, they have a coding class in New Jersey that I plan to send my son to. That's $1,200, and it's like for 4 weeks. But that's an investment, and he's only 8. We have to invest in their future. So very, very important that, and even if let's say you don't have the money to send your child to coding classes, you can actually get teach them coding if you have an iPad. I'm sure they probably have coding on Android as well. But I know definitely with iPad they have coding, and it's called um, Cosme. I think it's called Cosme. It's COSME or something like that. If you put in coding on iTunes or on Apple, you'll find it. And so these are things that we have to ensure that our young people know. We want to get them involved in robotics, coding, things that involve computers, because that's going to be the way of the future, and we don't want our young people to struggle. So we've talked about number 3. Remember, we're talking about 10 things that we need to tell our young people to be successful. So number 1 was chess, right? We want them to learn chess. Number 2, we want them to be involved in some sort of sports, right? And going back to sports for a moment, you also develop friendships in sports. And some of those friendships that you develop in sports become lifelong friendships. I could tell you that growing up and playing sports in Harlem and different teams and stuff like that, to this day, a lot of the guys that I played sports with are some of my closest and dearest friends to this day. And you get to know a person when you're able to share victory as well as loss together, right? And there's nothing sweeter than winning a game with a bunch of guys and celebrating and getting trophies and stuff like that. It bonds you. So like I said, sports. Number 2 is sports. Number 3 is computers, coding, right? Very, very important. Number 4, I recently I met with a young lady who is in charge of the internships for the city of New York. So number 4 is internships. You got to remember that a lot of our young people, as they get older, they're going to want to make money. And I would tell you that we're better off suggesting to our young people to do an internship at a company, a Fortune 500 company, as opposed to working at your local McDonald's or your Dunkin' Donuts. And no disrespect to those organizations, but I would rather my young person learn office skills, um, you know, learn office politics, network with individuals in an office, and kind of get that information needed so that way they're prepared to go work in an office when they graduate from college, right? And so a lot of times young people are thrust into that without really understanding how an office works. And so very, very important that internships, we want to steer our young people towards internships, because the things that they learn while they intern is actually considered in work experience. And that work experience you can actually take that work experience on with you when you graduate from college. A lot of young people leave college with no work experience, or they worked at a summer camp a couple of summers in a row, or they worked at McDonald's or your Starbucks or something like that, and it's not work experience that they can actually take with them and boost their salaries when they go out there in the workforce working for a Fortune 500 company. So very, very important that we suggest to our young people do internships. Hey, what's going on, Sarah? What's going on, Tony? Right? So very, very important, right? So we talked about 4 things that we want to let our young people know. We talked about chess. We talked about having them play sports. We talked about having them learn coding. Number 4, we talked about internships, right? It's very, very important that they do internships. Um, and I could just tell you, if you interned 4 consecutive summers for a Fortune 500 company, 9 times out of 10, when you're ready to graduate from college, guess what? You have a job offer probably waiting for you. So that's why internships are so valuable, right? So we want to kind of have our young people do internships, steer them away from working for, 12, $13 an hour at their local Dunkin' Donuts or McDonald's. And I know they want money, but we want to kind of support our young people and have them be prepared to have long-term success. And it's hard to have long-term success if they're starting behind the 8 ball because they don't have any work experience. So very, very important. We want them to do internships. So number 4 is internships. Number 5. Now, a lot of people don't realize that in today's society, vocational skills are taking a beating. A lot of people, they can do customer service, right? I mean, retail essentially is customer service, right? But we want to ensure that our young people have a vocational skill. Now, my suggestion obviously would be computers, right, as a vocational skill. But let's just say, for argument's sake, they don't gravitate towards computers. So a vocational skill that they could have is typing. Anyone can type. Anyone can learn how to type. So if you learn how to type 90 to 100 words a minute, that's a vocational skill. Another vocational skill, obviously, things like plumbing, electricity, an electrician, all right, a carpenter. A lot of times, a lot of people, these things were passed on to, their young people had vocational skills passed on to them from their parents, right? Like, for instance, there's this guy who owns a shoe shop in Harlem. And I used to take my shoes to have him repair them. And he learned from his father. And his father learned from his father. And I mean, I don't know how to repair shoes, right? And the average person doesn't know how to repair shoes. But if my father repaired shoes, I probably would learn how to repair shoes as well. So vocational skills play a major role. So we want to have our young people have a vocational skill to fall back on. I mean, successful people have had vocational skills to fall back on. Just for example, Harrison Ford was a carpenter before he became an actor, right? And so if you notice in his film, and I know I'm dating myself, but if you ever watched his film Witness, he plays where he goes hiding in the Amish country. You'll notice that in the film he has to help build a barn, right? And he was talking about how he is a carpenter, and that's one of the reasons why they had that in the movie, right? So we want to make certain that one of our young people know vocational skills, right? Very, very important. And I don't care what vocational skill they learn. I don't care if they become barbers. But the reason why we want to always have a vocational skill is because, like, as I mentioned before, sometimes things don't work out necessarily the way we want them to. And because of that reason, you want to have a vocational skill to fall back on. So I don't care if it's a CDL driver, if you want to get a CDL license. And once again, the call-in number, if you have any questions, you want to make any comments, the number to call is 516-453-9957, right? And so our lines are currently open. So if you have any questions, feel free to call in. So tonight we're talking about 10 things that we want to ensure that we tell our young people that they know, that help them be successful. And these things I talk about in my book, right? Success Essentials for Young Adults, the Guide to Employment and Life Success. And I talk about those things because it was a struggle growing up and not getting good advice. And so it's important that we advise our young people some of the things that they have to know and do to be successful, right? Number 6, language. We have to ensure that our young people learn another language. Now, for those folks that who live in bilingual households, right? If your young person knows English and Spanish, of course they have an advantage. But I would suggest to you, you want them to learn a third language. Imagine the advantage a young person has if they know English, Spanish, and French, or English, Spanish, and Chinese, or English, Spanish, and Greek, English, Spanish, and Hindu, or Indian. I mean, you want to encourage your young person to know a second language. Now, if they live in a bilingual household, let's say their parents, speak Spanish, they learn Spanish from their parents, you want them to encourage them to learn a third language, because there are thousands of college graduates on a yearly basis, right? There are hundreds, probably thousands different students, colleges around the country. And all of these students are going out there in the workforce every year. And all of them are looking for jobs as accountants, lawyers, doctors, you name it, right? The one thing that's going to separate an accountant from New Mexico State, an accountant from Harvard, an accountant from Columbia, is the other things that he brings to the table. So if we encourage our young person to have another language, he now separates himself from the other candidates. And I can assure you, if you have 10 accountants applying for a job and only one of them speaks 3 languages, I can assure you, the young person that speaks 3 languages goes to the top of the line. He goes to the top of the heap. So we want to encourage our young people to learn another language. Now, if you're not in a bilingual household, I would encourage you to teach your young people Spanish. And the reason why is because, as you guys know, there is an influx of, folks coming from other countries. And so, you have an advantage over someone if you know how to speak another language. And Spanish is very close, from what I understand, and taking French and know a little bit of Spanish. French is very similar to Spanish. So, I mean, learn French, learn Spanish, learn another language is very, very important. I can't stress it enough that we want to encourage our young people to learn another language. I want to thank everyone who's joining me on Facebook Live and those folks who are watching on YouTube Live as well. Number 7, networking. We want to teach our young people how to network effectively. We want them to be able to approach, to be comfortable with people, and to understand the importance of networking early in life. You don't want young people who are shy and unable to approach people and unable to make connections. Because even if you have your own business, people are customers. And so those young people who are able to be approachable, those folks who are able to go out and do presentations. So when I say networking, my suggestion would be have a young person enroll in something like Toastmasters. Toastmasters, in a lot of cases, Toastmasters are free. In some cases, you have to pay a membership, but there are a lot of Toastmaster classes around the country. I would suggest, enroll a young person into Toastmasters. You want them to be able to get over that fear of talking in public, and you want them to be able to get over the fear of approaching people, the inability to network effectively. Networking is very critical to our success, because oftentimes it's not about what you know, it is about who you know. The more people you know, the more successful you will be. The more successful people you know, the more successful you will be. Because like I said, it's not about what you know, and oftentimes it's about who you know. And like one of the things that I talk about in my workshops, the easiest way to get a job, and believe me, it is the easiest way to get a job, is by knowing someone. by someone giving you the inside track to an opportunity. So very, very important. It's not about what you know, it's about who you know. So networking is very important. And how do we network? How do we get comfortable with networking? We get comfortable by networking by taking classes like Toastmasters, or there's actually a website that teaches folks how to, do presentations, and it's called. I'm gonna get the website, but it's called Presentations. It's a presentation workshop online. But I would, and you can also, go to YouTube. YouTube, I love YouTube. You can pretty much learn almost anything on YouTube nowadays. So very, very important um, that people be able to network effectively. So number 7. So let's just recap 7 things that we need to tell our young people to be successful. Number 1, we want to encourage them to play chess. Chess allows young people to score high in math tests. It allows them to be able to strategize a lot better. Number 2, play sports. We want to encourage our young people to play sports. And even if they don't want to play, because I can assure you that there are going to be kids out there who would much rather be in the house on YouTube, playing with their tablets on the computer. We have to encourage them, and sometimes we have to force them to participate in a sport, then do so. It benefits them in the long run. Number 3, computers. We want to encourage them to learn a software, all right, and learn coding, right? So if they learn coding, they're halfway home. Imagine a young person who learns coding at 10 and pursues it for the next 7 to 10 years. By age 20, he's so nice at coding, forget about it. He can work virtually from any place in the country from home, right? And the companies that if you look at the top companies out there nowadays, your Googles, your Yahoos, your Oracles, your Facebooks, all the people that work for them know coding. So very, very important. Do your research and make certain that your young people know coding. Internships, number 4, we talked about internships, making certain that our young people learn how to work in an office, right? So very, very important. Vocational skill, make certain that they get a vocational skill under their belt, right? Very, very important. We talked about having them learn a language, learning a second language, a third language, very, very important, because they're going to need things to separate them from the other candidates out there looking for a job, right? Networking is very, very important, because oftentimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. And so if we don't encourage our young people to network, then what's going to happen is they're going to be uncomfortable when they have to go out there and introduce themselves to employers. And you want them to be able to be successful in interviewing. And if they have the ability to network, then they should be all right. Right. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back momentarily. So bear with me one moment. Johnson.